Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Africa Comes Week. Please confirm that you can hear me in the chat. Good morning, good morning. Thank you for joining us early. Thank you for your punctuality. All right, fantastic. So you're welcome to Africa Comes Week. Africa Comes Week is a global platform that builds a bridge between communication professionals focused on the transformation of Africa. And the mission really is to empower and equip Africa-focused communications professionals with the tools and resources that they need to change the current narrative about Africa. Now, this particular session is hosted by Leap Africa. And Leap Africa is a youth-focused leadership development organization that is committed to raising leaders that will transform Africa. And we do this through interventions for young people that bridge the gap in leadership, education, employability, and of course, entrepreneurship. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Please introduce yourselves in the chat. Tell us your name, what you do, and where you're joining us from. All right. So last year, our session was themed around impact across borders. And we had such an amazing session last year with mind-blowing conversations. But this year, our theme is storytelling for Africa's development. And I must say that storytelling is a tool that has been used in Africa for centuries and centuries. I mean, I remember the days where we used to watch Tales by Moonlight on NTA every Sunday evening, right? Storytelling has always been used for character development, but we're taking it a step further and just looking at how we can use storytelling for the development of Africa. And we have phenomenal speakers with us in the room this morning who will be taking us through a beautiful journey, an instructive journey of storytelling for the development of Africa. We'll be having a panel session, after which we'll all go into different workshops based on our preferred area of interest. And after the workshops, we'll call on one person from each session to share what they have learned, so be prepared, all right? Just a few rules. Please ensure that you turn off your mic once you join and you stay muted unless you're requested to unmute, of course. And if you have any questions, you can always put your questions in the chat. We have team members who will take note of your questions and will point us in the direction of them. Also, our capacity this morning is 100. So once we have 100 participants on the call, you will be redirected to YouTube. We're also live on YouTube, so you can join us on YouTube to follow the conversations that we'll be having this morning. Now, without further ado, I would like us to delve right into today's session, because just like you, we are also anticipating and expectant that we would have mind-blowing conversations this morning about storytelling. So let's delve right in. And to take us through the welcome address this morning, it gives me great pleasure to introduce the Executive Director of Leap Africa, Kende Ayeni. Please make her feel welcome. Let me see your welcome in the chat. I'll be checking for it. Okay. All right, over to you, Kenny, for the welcome address.
Thank you so much. Beautiful Joy. There was this gentleman, I want to believe it's a gentleman, that was just saying, oh, all we can see is a beautiful lady in front of us this morning. And I really, really hope that he's going to leave here with more than looking at Joy's face and listening to the fantastic speakers. Thank you all so much. It gives me great pleasure to be joining you this morning. I see amazing people just coming in and letting us know that they are here for a fantastic time. How do I begin this? Very simple. Communication is close to my heart. I personally have spent the first few years of my career in communications, corporate communications. And even before I joined the organization, I had a brief stint in marketing. And so my journey has really been around just helping to package, sell, push forward services or products and communicating the brand, the vision of the organization. But today, it's even on a bigger pedestal where we are talking about Africa and why we need to be shaping stories. But it must begin with three power levels that I have identified to share with you all today. I know that you have, this amazing lineup of speakers who will do amazing justice to each of the portions they are going to speak to or the piece they are speaking to. But I just want to set an overarching context. But before I even delve into the three levels of powers that I wanted to share with you, I wanted to give an opportunity to know more about the organization. I know that Joy did try to help you understand who Leap Africa is. Can we mute our mic, please, if you're not speaking? Thank you. There's just a bit of feedback there. Just recently, as recent as 2 days ago, Leap Africa turned 22. I can still hear the rambling of someone's microphone. Okay, thank you. That helps. Just as recent as 2 days ago, Leap Africa turned 22. And for us as an organization, a local nonprofit, indigenous nonprofit, it's a big milestone for us because 20 years felt like yesterday that we were celebrating this momentous anniversary of ours. But 2 years later, and even counting, we are still here thriving. And it speaks a lot about the organization's, growth, investment, plans, and aspirations. But I must first, unpack why we are and why we do what we do. 20 years ago or 22 years ago, our founder, Ndidi Wuneli, had an idea, a vision for Africa where the resources of the continent will be in the hands of young people and they will be the drivers of the change that they desire for the continent. And this is us, fueling that vision many years later with a Pan-African vision that is really serving young people. Our focus is on youth leadership development, and we have chosen to really situate our work in 5 priority areas, which Joy has also alluded to, which will be youth education, entrepreneurship, employability, active citizenship, and of course, mental health and well-being. The last pillar is the latest addition to our work where it's begun to dawn on us that we need the right space, an environment to nurture talent, to nurture human capital development, really in the full sense of it. And we cannot do that in isolation of what's going on around us, without considering economic pressures. And when we think about these 5 pillars, we feel these are the biggest areas in which we can achieve the highest level of social mobility for young people, enable transition, and allow us to really ignite and catalyze change in young leaders in Africa. And we do know that anyone can lead, which is why our intervention really starts for young people from the ages of 14 to 35. And because we have a very wide demography of young people that we are catering to or we are serving, it's important for us to recognize the stage in which our intervention serves the best, the opportunities in which they thrive the best, the policies that enable
Apologies, everyone. I think that Kenny is experiencing some network challenges. We'll just give her a couple of minutes to come back online. All right, I can see us in the comments. Thank you so much for introducing yourselves and also telling us where you're joining us from. I see someone sharing their LinkedIn link. Absolutely amazing stuff. Yes, please, this is also an opportunity to network with other professionals. So please take advantage of this opportunity, network, meet people. And yes, I believe Kenny is back.
We are in Nigeria. I really apologize for that. I had backup of a backup, but Nigeria has happened to all of us, and particularly me this morning, and I really apologize. Just a moment, just resituating myself. Hopefully, everything is going according to plan, and I'll make it quick before life happens to me again. And so this is me just trying to paint a picture of why our work continues to drive our passion and fuel how far we work. Right now, we have opportunity to work with partners all over the world. But our constituents and really those we are serving are in Africa, and we've been able to touch the lives of millions in over 30 countries, and I believe 40 countries now. But moving away from that passion of why LEAP continues to serve young people and why it's committed to youth leadership development, so the matter of the day, which is really to usher us into why we are looking at influence, the power of storytelling and storytelling in Africa development, really. And the first power of storytelling is understanding that you need to connect with those that you're talking to. And we connect with people for a number of reasons, trying to make a logical argument, to trying to exert authority, or trying to even appeal to anyone's emotion. There are many reasons with which we communicate, or we try to tell our stories, or we try to convince or sell or make an impression. I think impression is a good word to use today. And when we think about that, we need to begin to understand what needs to happen for that process to take place. The second power of storytelling that I'm going to share, of course, is the power of shaping the narrative and shifting perspectives. I think this for me is the crux of the matter when we are really thinking about how to bring attention to social issues and injustices, mobilizing people to take action and advocating for change. I did say that some of the things that we do allows us to work and serve young people, but a big component of that is really advocating for young people. And advocating for those that are responsible for decisions that affect young people, essentially. And you need to be able to bring people on your side if you really want them to shift their perspective or change their thinking or create a movement or anything you're thinking of like that. For an organization such as ours, we have found, and it's still something we are working on, that we don't tell our stories enough. The stories of change, the stories of behavioral competencies or shift that are happening, the stories of impact, short-term to long-term, the stories of influence, the stories that really drive us to get up every morning and work. We as an organization still struggle and strive to get this right. And it's something that is going to serve us all with the power of the panel that we have today to be able to really look at those tools and kits that they will share with us to understand how we can continue to tell the right stories, to shift perspectives, to mobilize resources, to market our brand in order to get whatever it is we want from the development space. When I think about the development space in that sense, I'm really talking about the resources are limited, and for it to go around, you must be telling a very compelling story that allows you to get a share of the people working with you or the people that would choose to be on that journey with you. And of course, the power of influence. There is a reason we do the work we do. For us at Leap Africa, we have a tripartite, no, actually a quadruple bottom line. And one of that is going to be influence. It's not enough that we get up day by day and we do all these activities that allows us to, make a dent when we think about the impact that we want to see in Africa and Nigeria. But we believe that the power of influence is where you're wielding one person to influence another person, or one person that is influencing a community through community change projects, through campaigns, through several activities and engagement at multi-level stakeholders that you can think of. For us, we believe that influence is far greater than the other things combined in this situation. And for Africa, many people tell our stories. I remember that when we had the Sorosoke movement during the NSAS, there was a book that was published and several articles that were led by non-Africans. Why is it that Africans will tell our stories? Why is it that non-Africans will document our impact? Why is it that non-Africans will lead campaigns that will benefit us and serve us? This is why it's important that we begin to look at storytelling for Africa's development. To begin to consider more opportunities for Africans to be able to share from their own perspective, their own lived realities, their own experiences. And that's why, I think today's theme is well situated for us to begin to walk that talk. And with that, I've come to the end of my welcome remarks. I'm really hoping that you have an amazing time with all the panel who have come to share their nuggets of experiences with us today. And Leap Africa will also be taking notes, to ensure that we are practicing so many of the gems that they'll be dropping today. Thank you also very much for joining us. I'll see you afterwards. Bye for now.
Thank you so much, Kenny. Please let us appreciate the Executive Director of Leap Africa for that powerful welcome address. That was an entire session on its own. Thank you so much, Kenny, for sharing so wonderfully with us this morning the importance and the power of storytelling and how important it is that Africans tell the story of Africa. Thank you so much. So we will move right on. And next on our agenda this morning is the panel session. Let me know if you're excited about this panel session. Very quickly, I'll introduce our speakers for the panel session and we'll just go right into it. Unfortunately, one of our speakers is unable to join. She had an emergency this morning, but she's all right. However, she's unable to join us for this session this morning. So we'll be having 3 speakers for our panel session and also for the workshop. So I'll introduce them really quickly so that we can delve right in. So our first speaker is Godfrey Adejumoh. He's the Head Corporate Affairs and Sustainability Business, Unilever, Nigeria. Please make him feel welcome. We also have with us this morning Iyanuoluwa Fatoba, who is the Communications Manager, World Benchmarking Alliance, as WBA, the Netherlands. You're welcome. And finally, we have with us this morning Niyi Fagbemi, a travel and documentary filmmaker. You are all welcome, welcome, welcome. All right. Can you please turn on your videos so that we can see you? Okay, I see Godfrey. All right, you're welcome. I don't see Niyi yet, and Iyanuoluwa. Okay, there's Niyi. Aha, thank you very much. Welcome, welcome our amazing speakers. We're so delighted to have you here this morning. And we'll just go right into this panel session. We have a couple of questions that would like you to sort of expand on based on your area of expertise. And we'll be starting with Godfrey this morning. Our first topic or our first question really is from your own perspective, what is the potency of storytelling to influence development in Africa? And really, how can we effectively, use stories for influence? Over to you, Godfrey.
Okay, morning everyone. I hope you can hear
Good
me,
morning.
Joy, me, Iyanuoluwa, and everyone. Just confirm you can hear me. Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Just to confess that Kehinde has said everything, so I'll really struggle to add anything to what she said because she really has emptied everything. She spoke about influencing and all of that. I really enjoyed listening to her, and also to say last night when I talked about this session, I was asking myself, how do I look African? I was very confused and I just went into my wardrobe and wore this. And when I came in and I saw Joy, I just said, this is African. Like everything about Joy is very African. So those were things I wanted to drop first so that we don't come up here and be so uptight. Truth is, learning is better when it is in a relaxed atmosphere. So I'm not one that is I'm not a professor. I'm just like every other person. What I know is what I have learned through the years on the job. I prayed to be to Harvard, but I haven't been yet. So whatever I say is my story. It might not be your story, but it is what I'm able to share. So glad to be here and thanks everyone. So to the question, what is the influence of storytelling? First is to understand what is storytelling. And to be honest, everybody has a story and everybody is telling a story. Like there is nobody that doesn't have a story. Some will say, why is this person out there? I'm even better than the person. Why am I not out there? The only thing I will say is you frame your narrative. Like you frame your narrative. You look at it from the end point of view. What do I hope to attain? So you heard when Kennedy said, there is limited resources. So do you want to attract a share of it? Your story is your way to attract that limited resources. You have a lot of young people now in Africa, not in diaspora, right in our continent, like Flutterwave and all of that. They raise huge amount of money. They didn't do it because they knew the end from the start. They just started with the gods of, I can do this. So if you ask me, how do you shape and influence your story? It is think from the end to the start. Like, what do you want to achieve? Once you have that in mind, you walk towards it, you re-engineer, you rethink your processes. So I am not one that writes a message and send out because I am the expert. I am one that writes a message and take to someone who is a non-comms person and say, please read this. If you read it and you understand it, it means I have communicated. But if you read it and you're asking me, what does this mean? I have not communicated. So the real power of storytelling and how it shapes and influences people is clarity, understanding, simplicity. The simpler you keep it, the clearer it is. The clearer it is, the more you communicate. The more people understand what you're communicating, the more they buy into your ideology. So the moment all of this is missing, simplicity, clarity, and all of that, you will begin to ask yourself, why am I not getting it? Why am I not getting it? It is because you have not re-engineered your style, your framing, and your modeling. So I don't know if that's in any way good response, but that's what I have to share for a start. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, sir. That was really, really good. I think I particularly liked when you said that when you develop something, share it with a non-comms person. Let them look at it. If they can understand it, then you're good to go. If they have questions, now you're not there yet. Clarity, understanding, and simplicity. Thank you so much. All right, so we'll move over to Iyanuoluwa.
Oh, okay. Do you want me to answer the same question?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Joy, and thank you, Godfrey. I actually think that you sort of already articulated some of the things, most of the things that I wanted to say in terms of how can we use storytelling to influence development in Africa. I think one of the key things for me when it comes to story, now what makes stories good or what defines storytelling is that it captures real experiences, is that it captures real people, it captures real voices. I work in a place where we deal with a lot of data, and then I say to my team, like, all this data, they do not make sense if you cannot bring it to the perspective of human. So when you say that, for example, you want food and agriculture companies, for example, to take a particular action and pay farmers living wage, what does that translate to in the life of smallholder farmers? When you are saying that corporations, you have gender balanced boards, what does that mean for decision making? What does that mean for operations? When you are saying that a particular government, federal or state, should sort of pay attention to a particular public good, what does that translate to? How does that translate to social equity, for example? So what makes a story is that it is relatable. It captures real experiences. It is that it captures real voices of real people and real communities that you're trying to advocate for. So basically, I think if that element is sort of solid and it is there, then you can begin to now talk about everything that Mr. Godfrey said about keeping it simple, making it authentic, keeping it genuine, and then ensure that it captures the experiences of people accurately. And I mean, and on top of my head, I could list some of the pathways to storytelling that were explored. Even in Nigeria, the NSAS movement, people took to social media to begin to talk about their own personal experiences with, the Nigerian police force. The Me Too movement, people took to social media to, share about sexual harassment, their experience with sexual harassment, and even move beyond social media. Years ago, about women riots, they took to using dance, actions, music, and things like that, just to make people understand the kind of social injustice that they face, and the kind of action that they need from stakeholders and from the government. So yeah, I'll just keep it there. For me, storytelling is very powerful. It's a very powerful tool, but then it is not a story if it is not capturing, if there's no human element to it, if it is not capturing the experiences, real life experiences of people. And then it is also not a story if it is not simple, if it is not genuine, and if it is not, if the local context is missing, basically. But I think we'll still talk about that, so I don't want to say too much, but I think answers the question.
Thank you so much, Iyanuoluwa. I particularly like that you mentioned the genuineness of the stories that we tell and how they have to capture real experiences. Those are the things that resonate with people the most. And just speaking to, the NSAS movement and how, many people came forward to share their real life experiences. It made it more relatable. It made us understand that, okay, this is happening to real life people. This is happening to people that you and I know. And that made it easier for us to understand and relate with it. Thank you so much. Niyi, do you have one or two things that you want to add to that, please?
Okay, thanks so much. I think maybe before I start, I'll just say thanks to Lip Africa for this platform as well. I think it's very key that we as Africans also come together to discuss, things about Africa and also how we can move things forward as well. So I think maybe for me, what I can just say regarding storytelling, which is very important, is Africans, we need to tell our own stories ourselves. You get, so when we're growing up, in the past, it's been very, very common for people to tell our own stories. So rather than hear about somewhere that is in our backyard from our neighbor, we're going to be hearing about somewhere that is in our backyard from the Western media and from things online and stuff like that. So I think nowadays it's become, there's been a lot of ground gained, and when it comes to telling our own stories, but there's still more to be done. So I just think that we as Africans need to tell our own stories ourselves and educate ourselves, which also helps to bring development and also helps to tell the true stories which haven't really been told before. I think one other thing I also want to say is it's also key to also enlighten each other. I think one instance I always give people is, for instance, you can hear a lot of places about Nigeria, about Africa, but you don't necessarily have a pictorial representation of that place. And one thing which is very important in my field is being able to give people an experience without having to visit these places. So for instance, let's think of somewhere like Katsina State, for instance, or let's think of somewhere like Mount Kilimanjaro. I mean, you could have heard the word before, but you do not necessarily know how these places look. You get, except you visited them, or except, I mean, you do some research. You get, but I think nowadays it's a lot easier to have a very clear picture of Mount Kilimanjaro. But for something like Katsina now, for instance, I've been there severally. I've been to Borno State. I mean, a lot of what you hear about all these places is, I mean, it's the bad news, which is what drives like the Western media. But if you actually go to all these places, you see that, I mean, there's really life outside Lagos. There's really life outside Abuja. I mean, these people, they live their normal lives, and I mean, there's a lot of stories to be told there. So I think maybe what I'll just say is, it's important for we Africans to tell our own stories in the best way possible, to be able to drive development. And also, I mean, there's a lot more to be said, but I'm sure we'll discuss further in the breakout sessions as well.
Thank you so much, Niyi, for sharing. And very important what you said about us telling our stories ourselves, and not just feeding the Western, feeding the narrative of the Western media, which is really to portray Africa as a poor continent that needs the savior, the savior being the Western world, to swoop in and do something. Thank you so much. And I particularly like that you mentioned that. It just reminded me of how growing up would read so many books about the Western world from different authors that sort of give us a picture of what those communities look like and how they operate. So much so that when you have conversations with people who live there or grew up there, you can actually relate because you've read about these things. And, it's important that we do that for ourselves, for Africa. And I must say that I've seen some of your work that you've done on Nigerian states. I'm like, wait a minute, that's Nigeria? It's really, really important that we do that. Thank you so much. Very quickly, we'll move on to the next and final question for this panel session. So in the context of Africa's development, right, what narratives must we harness? Because there are different facets to us as Africa. We're a multi-lingual continent. We have so many cultures across the continent. Which of the narratives is important for us to harness? Iyanuoluwa, do you want to start this? Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. Yeah, I can start. So I think in terms of the kind of stories that we need to harness, I would like to answer that from two perspectives, and I'll be very quick. There's the, like we've already discussed, and like Niyi already mentioned, that we can tell our own stories and we need to show the true picture of what Africa looks like. It just reminds me of, I think sometime last year, I was talking to, I was in a gathering, let me not mention the name of the person. And then she was like, oh, do you guys have where to watch Barbie in Nigeria? And then the thing is, I hear things like that, right? When people say it in the news, but then I never thought it would happen to me. And then I was like taken aback, like, what do you mean? Nigeria, we have cinemas. Like, I just didn't even know how to approach that. So there's stereotypes like that we need to sort of start, breaking down those kind of stereotypes. I remember when Megan also was around, and then somebody had said something about, Nigeria was a Muslim state, and people had to start saying that no, Nigeria is not dominantly a Muslim state. We have like a mixture of Christian and Muslims. So I just give those examples to say that there's the aspect of we are activating that part of our narrative and trying to tell our stories more. I tell people, yeah, we need to tell stories about hunger in the land. We need to tell stories about, children that are hungry out of school, children, women that are working without being paid. But do we need to make them look dejected while telling the stories? No. Do we need to make them look hungry, subjugated, look like they are very helpless? No, we don't. Do we need to talk about the fact that we have development issues? Definitely, we need to talk about those things. But do we need to paint Africa, Nigeria as, a very hopeless, helpless, poverty-stricken place? No, we don't. There's a way you can craft and frame your narrative such that you are spotlighting the problem, but you are also you are retaining the dignity of Africa, in quote. So that's one perspective, in that, we need to challenge those dominant narratives and start telling our stories and start, mainstreaming some of those conversations about Africa. And then within the context of development and advocacy, which is where I am situated, I would say, let's take it a little bit further and say that if you look at the SDGs and the, ESG, these are two powerful frameworks that we already have, that sort of lays down the foundation or lays down the pathway of development for whether the global north or the global south. And we have poverty, we have zero hunger, we have WASH, we have gender equality. And I'll say that as professionals, a key thing to do in that regard is look at those two frameworks and say that, okay, my interest is, for example, gender equality. And then if that's your interest, you situate yourself within that narrative and begin to probe further that, okay, what kind of narrative do we need to spotlight for gender equality? What kind of narrative do we need to spotlight for poverty? What kind of narrative do we need to spotlight for income inequality, for example? And if you also find yourself on the business side of things, and I know that Mr. Godfrey would be able to relate very well, and then you are like, on the business side of, okay, what's the impact of business on the environment? So what kind of stories do you want to tell? How do you want to situate your business? How do you want to communicate the impact of your business on the environment without greenwashing, and with also saying that, okay, we understand that our actions affect the people, but this is what we are doing to mitigate those actions. So bringing those two thoughts together, challenging the dominant narratives, we need to keep harnessing those stories. We need to keep telling those stories. And that's why I really love Niyi's work. And secondly, within the practice, development practice, look within the SDGs and situate yourself within that framework and try to now probe further and, just try to explore that ecosystem and see how better you can tell stories just to influence action. I don't know if that, touches on the answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Iyanuoluwa. We need to challenge the dominant narratives. And I particularly like that you spoke about that. And I think that one major thing that you said is, that no matter where you really situate yourself within the SDGs, it's important that you preserve the dignity of Africa. That really stood out to me, preserving the dignity of Africa. No matter what story it is that we're telling, even if we're telling the story of communities that have a lot of poverty, that need help, of situations that are really dire, we need to still preserve the dignity of the people we're talking about and the dignity of Africa as a continent. Niyi, I saw that you agreed with a lot of things that Iyanuoluwa was talking about, so would also like to hear from you.
Okay. Thanks so much, Joy. I think maybe like Iyanu said, one thing that actually stood out for me is, you should be able to show, you should be able to pass across a message without being able to show something in the bad light. So, for instance, in my own field, if I'm doing like a documentary about the state of the nation or the state of a particular side of the nation, you don't necessarily have to show like all the things in a bad light. You can still pass across that message without showing, like, let's say, a child that is dirty, naked children, stuff like that. So they are really, it's really, really key to ensure like we control those narratives. So I think maybe just to answer the question now, so in terms of harnessing the narrative, in terms of harnessing the narrative, this practically means being able to control the narrative. So we need to control our own narrative because that's what's going to help us. So for instance, I think it would be wrong for me to hear about, let's say Iyanu, for instance, now from someone else, and what that person is saying is not necessarily true. But because I'm hearing it from that person first, it's just going to change my perception about Iyanu, irrespective of whether it is true or not. You get so, but maybe when I now speak with Iyanu, I can now say, oh, based on what I've experience now, it's definitely different from what I've heard before. So, that's just an example. So in order to answer the questions, right? So I think maybe some of the things we need to control. So I'll be speaking maybe towards my own field as well, is number one, being able to spotlight positive change and progress, which helps like the nation and the continent overall. Also being able to spotlight our own people and our own culture. One way we can do that is being able to show like the beautiful colors. One thing I ensure that I do in my field is being able to capture not only my own culture, not only my own nation, but also, places around Africa so that people can see that, oh, okay, I don't necessarily need to book a holiday to Venice, it's Italy, or Geneva, Switzerland, to be able to experience, I mean, something new. You can just say, oh, I want to come to Lagos, Nigeria. I want to go to Ogun State for like the Ojide Oba, for instance. I want to go to like Tanzania to like experience like the Maasai culture. So stuff like that. So it's really important to document our own culture, which also helps to preserve it as well. So I think maybe another thing I'll also mention is it's good that we also control the narrative when it comes to the tourism potential, and also being able to show people places. When you see a lot of things online, I think one thing that can help when you see a lot of things that are online about a place, I mean, it really helps to drive people to actually come to that place. So if I did not necessarily see something about let's say a new restaurant that opened in Lagos, there's no way I'm going to find my way there unless I see it. You get to, I mean, nowadays people say something like seeing is believing. So it's just very important for us to control the narrative by showing people things. And I think maybe the last one, which ties to Iyanu's point as well, which is one thing I majorly do, is through documentary films as well, which I mean, you can pass across a message of something not going really well without being able to identify somebody. So that, I think that's pretty much it for my own end.
Thank you so much, Niyi. I think one key thing that you mentioned is spotlighting positive change, really, and also spotlighting our culture, which helps us to preserve it. I like that you touched on the potential of tourism. And I think that that's a very important point, because it's one of the ways that we can generate revenue for our nation and for our continent. It's something that several other countries of the world have majored on, just showcasing these amazing and beautiful tourism spots that they have. You see it online and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to visit that place. But you have similar places in your nation, literally in the state next to you. But because you don't know, no one has ever told you or shown you, so you don't have that information and you're not able to make an informed decision and, keep the revenue in your own nation and in your own continent, so that we can use that revenue to develop our continent, really. Thank you so much, Niyi. Would like to hear from you now, Godfrey. Thank you.
Okay, beautiful points by Niyi and Iyanuoluwa. Let me just add very little or nothing to say that, I don't know if people realize that the future of the world right now is the African continent. You can Google it, like just say future of the world. Which continent is the future of the world? It's Africa, like it's in black and white. Ask yourself why. The reason is very simple. About 60% of our population in Africa is about 25 years old. These are the people that will be makers and shakers and movers of the world tomorrow. When they say the future is in the hands of young people, just know that they are saying that the future of the world is in Africa. That's a story that needs to be out there. That's a story that needs to be sustained, because the indices shows that we'll continue on this trajectory for a very long time, like beyond the 2020 that we are in. Deep into 21 something, it will remain so. And let me now also unpack where Niyi and Iyanuoluwa mentioned culture. There's something about our culture, and the way I will sum it is in the words of one of our African thinkers, J.S. Mbutu. He said, I am because we are, and because we are, therefore I am. So what is the African culture? The African culture is family. The African culture is originality, is we first before I, if you get what I mean. So we need to let the world know that while they are going in the individual approach of their style of governance, we are very inclusive. So that is why the diversity of our languages, of our culture, it is in no way a minus. It is everything positive. I do not think, and Niyi, please correct me, no country, no continent in the world has more beautiful colors than the continent of Africa. Like, that's what I think. The question is, how do we focus on this positive? I've said the future of the world is Africa in terms of statistics and data. Young people, they will control the world. They're already doing it. Tech, innovation, everything, data, what you can do at your age. Someone 10 years younger than you will do that in less the time processing that you are wasting, because they have that mindset to innovate. They are faster and all of that. So how do we play up consistently with that narrative that the future is here? And let me also tell you what Tony Elumelu said recently at a conversation somewhere, I think in Germany or so. Africa does not need aid. Africa needs investment. There's a difference between aid and investment. Aid is like, I pity you, you are hopeless. And so I'm your Jesus Christ, I'm your Muhammad, I'm your this. So I've come to save you. But investment is, I see opportunity. I want to handshake you and partner with you that we can become partners in progress. Who does this better than we Africans? So I submit by saying that there's so much we can play up from the futuristic perspective of where does the future lie is Africa, from our culture, which is very family, and we need to preserve and protect it. And lastly, from the point of, it is not about AIDS, it is about investment, which is partnership. And this is what Africa is about.
Thank you so much. That was so insightful. Africa does not need AIDS. Africa needs investments, you know. I particularly like some of the things that you said, and how you mentioned that the future of the world is Africa. And you spoke about the culture of Africans, you know, one of it is our diversity and inclusion. It's so interesting that we're so diverse, yet we're quite inclusive, and we value family. It's amazing, and that's one of the things that really sets us apart from other worlds and other cultures, that family thing where we're able to come together and help one another, and you know, just be there to support the work that every other person is doing. Thank you so much, sir, for your submission. Very quickly, we'll take one question. Okay, we'll take one very quick question from Kenny. Okay, yes. Kenny, you can go ahead and ask your question, please.
Thank you. I made it. Thank you so much, Godfrey, Iyanuoluwa, and Niyi, for the brilliant things you've already shared. I just have one quick question for you all, and that is the cost of storytelling, because you've all expressed in many ways why we should be telling stories. But I also know there is a cost to this, financial cost, in-kind support, or whatever. What are those things when you think about movies, documentaries, content creation, and content marketing, and all of these things? Is it real that we can afford to tell the kind of stories that we should tell, and what does it cost us to tell any kind of story?
All right, thank you, Kenny, for that question. What's the cost of storytelling? Niyi, let's start with you.
Okay, thanks so much. I think maybe I wouldn't go into like details in terms of figures, but what I would just say, I mean, starting out is so we should not necessarily see storytelling as something that is really expensive, right? So you can tell stories from a small place, you can tell stories from a big place, you can tell stories I mean, with a big budget or a small budget, you get. So I think maybe one practical thing to actually even note is, let's look at Instagram Reels, for instance. I mean, nowadays, what actually goes viral is not necessarily what has been shot like with a professional camera with like a team of 100 people. It can be just something that somebody just recorded with their phone. And I mean, that will end up going much more viral than maybe the kind of works that I do and stuff like that, you get. So it's just being able to show that you don't necessarily have to be fully equipped, or you don't necessarily have to have like all the funds in the world to be able to tell these stories. So you can tell stories of your backyard, tell stories of places within your community. So me, I actually live in Abuja, and one thing that was very paramount to the way I started and what I'm doing is I didn't just start by saying, oh, Niyi is going to travel from from Abuja straight into Lagos to start documenting Lagos. You get, so I actually started out in Abuja. You get, I started out on my own community, being able to just do like a 30-minute drive, take some shots and stuff like that. So in terms of like the overall cost, I mean, there's been no like constant figure to it. But like I said, just start from where you are, do like something small and you shouldn't have any problem. So in terms of the costing now, right? So depending on what you want to do, I mean, there's like different budgets you can have, but like I said, you don't necessarily need to focus too much into that detail. I can speak a lot more about that maybe in the breakout session, but just for a general overview, I think this is just the best mindset to have. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Niyi. I don't know if, okay, I can't see Iyanuoluwa's video, so I don't know if Mr. Godfrey has one or two things that he wants to add to that.
Okay, I'll just say, Niyi had mentioned start from where you are. I would just say start with what you have. And you know what we all have? We have ourselves. Like we have our minds. Your mind can think. So don't look at the guy who is out there, successful, making all the waves. The guy actually started, he or she started from himself, herself. Do you get it? It's difficult to unpack this because people will be like, no, there's monetary cost to it. Yes, there is, but start with yourself. Like start with yourself. You will not become what you want to be if you do not start with yourself, with what you have and from where you are. It begins from those baby steps. And let me also tell you, please, failure is not a determining factor of how far you will go in life. So I always tell people, please plan and even pray to fail. The people who work with me, I tell them that if I know anything today, it's mostly from the very embarrassing moment of my career that I've learned the most than from the glorious moments. So we come into this journey thinking you start today, tomorrow I'm a star. No, it will never happen. Go and talk to Niyi again. That drive, he said he drove 30 minutes. There were times he trekked. There were times his camera was not of the quality he's using now. There were times he went, sorry, Niyi, there were times like maybe to eat a particular meal was not there. But he had himself, he had his mind, and he had what he wanted to do. And he started. You get it? For me, I tell one person that I'm one of the most traveled person around the world because I watch a lot of series, a lot of movies, African, and you ask me which country, I'll tell you about it. I'll tell you about it. I'll tell you about it because I am just exposing myself on my seat. The day will come that I can afford it and I will go. So if you hear nothing, please start with yourself, which is you have yourself, you have your mind. If you do not start with that, the resources you are looking for will never come. And the last thing is to say, please, failure is not a determining factor of how far you will go. Fail again, experiment again, and just one thing will happen and you will find yourself on the other side.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, sir. Failure does not determine how far you would go. Fail forward, fail fast, and learn from those moments. Iyanuoluwa, I don't know if you would like to quickly add one or two things before we move on.
I mean, I think Godfrey and Niyi already spoke to it, but just a very slightly, just addition that I think I would say is that now when it comes to storytelling is not just visual. Like there are different ways to tell stories, right? There's writing, there's art, there's music, there's different artistic expressions. So I think that from my experience, one of the things that I ask for is that, okay, if we're trying to like create a story, what budget do we have? And then that determines, okay, we can go high or we can go low. Do you understand? And I think that's the first thing that you need to be very, very, very truthful to yourself that, okay, what kind of resources are available to me? And then when you see the resources, you can now begin to say, okay, maybe we don't have to like do something really big yet, but we can, start from this small space. And then even at that, you can also like sort of think about collaborations, because I think that's one thing that most people don't really explore. Most resources that you need is in the hands of another partner. For example, I mean, Niyi is even here. You can say that, oh, I have this concept and this is the kind of story I want to tell. How do we, begin to collaborate? Because obviously he has the resources, he has the means, he has the equipment, and then you begin to explore. Currently, we are trying to like create stories of small scale holders in Africa from my organization. We are based in Europe. Number one, we don't have the people in Europe, they don't have the context. Then number two, they are not even close to these farmers. And then what we're exploring, one of the things we're exploring is partnership with some of the locally based NGOs to say, okay, this is what we are trying to do. And we know that you guys have the resources. How can we have the data? You have the resources to tell the stories. How can we come together to, to bring these stories alive? So it's not a black or white situation. It's just basically looking at what's available to you and try to like walk around it and explore it. But then when it now comes to big organizations like Leap Africa, I would expect that, of course, there's like some level of budgeting that goes into, okay, how many stories do you want to tell in a year, and then what are we willing to invest in it? So, but we'll talk about, there are different dimensions to it, and we'll talk about that during the breakout session, but I'll just leave that here for now.
Thank you so much, Iyanuoluwa. I particularly like that you mentioned collaboration. Collaboration is very key. It gets you the resources that you don't have at no cost, really. Just exchanging value, gets you there. Thank you so much. This has been an insightful panel session, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I'm sure that other people on the call also did enjoy it. So right now we'll go into our breakout workshop. Yeah, we don't have a lot of time, so we'll do that really quickly. If you look to your screen, you would see the prompts that are leading to the different breakout rooms. So you're advised to select the one that particularly resonates with you. We have 3 different breakout rooms, 3 different breakout workshops, however it is that you want to say it. Okay, so we have the visual storytelling workshop, which is about crafting compelling narratives through photography and videography. Niyi would be taking that. We have writing for, oh, okay, no, we don't have writing anymore. That was supposed to be taken by one of our speakers who is unfortunately unavailable. We have the data-driven storytelling using research and metrics to enhance impact. Iyanuoluwa would be taking this session. And the final session we have is storytelling for branding and public relations. Mr. Godfrey would be taking this session, and he would remain in the main room while others go to the 2 different breakout rooms that have been created already. Thank you so much, everyone.
Hi, Mr. Godfrey. You can commence your session now. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? So is it going to be in the chat that I'll be getting confirmation of if they can hear me?
Yes, it will be in the
Yes, sir, we
chat
can
box.
hear you.
Okay. So please correct me if I'm wrong in any way or form so that we're aligned. My understanding is this is going to be interactive. So the mind with which I came is to hear people ask questions and be able to provide responses. You know, the other session that we just finished was a bit of high level, very top line driven. But here you want to be a bit more granular, like that question of what is the cost and all of that. So I'm thinking that should it be a thing of people, if we can decently and nicely unmute, ask questions, and we take it like that. I didn't come with a presentation, so to say. I felt like let's talk with each other and interact more instead of doing one PowerPoint presentation. I don't know if that works.
Oh, okay. Yes, that works, sir. So everybody can speak now.
Okay. So I'm ready when we are. First question, second question, and to be honest, we are going to be discussing it together, not like there's one professor from Harvard that will be providing theoretical responses. Because again, one of the approaches that I take in sessions like this is to share real-time experiences, especially experiences that were not so good, but shaped the understanding of what I now know differently and how things can be done better. So it's possible that my experience that I'll be sharing with you is that at that time, it was a negative experience, but it has now helped me to improve on whatever I am doing today. So it's not an all beautiful experience, quote and unquote. That's also what I wanted to put out here. Okay. So anyone with any question, or you want me to just start first?
I think it will be best to start first, so you give us a direction.
Okay, all right. So I'm starting now the breakout session that I have before me. Let me just read out what is here. Okay, storytelling for branding and public relations, building a positive reputation. So let me start this way to say, what is it that everybody wants? Like everybody, when you say you are a brand, what is it? It doesn't matter the size of your brand. It can be just one man. It can be a few people. It can be large corporates, as it were, multinationals. But let's dimension it to there is a common thing that everybody wants. And that thing is when people think about you, what should come to their minds is positive. What should come to their mind is positive. Now, why that is what everybody wants, it is not the experience of everybody. Let me also tell you that there is no one brand that has its reputation constantly and continuously positive. I don't know that brand yet. Like every brand will always at some point face one difficulty or the other. So I start again by saying, what does everybody want? So when we say for brand storytelling, for branding, public relation, and you now put positive reputation. Your reputation is something that when we see you, what do we think? Like when they mention your name, when you mention Leap Africa, what comes to mind? When you mention Africa, what comes to mind? Just do some kind of imagination now. Think of a name, an individual name, male or female. Think of a brand, big, small, and of whatever size. And just pause, reflect for a few minutes to say, what do I think of them? What do I think of them? Let me answer like this. That thing you think of them, you didn't think of it from a vacuum. You thought of it, and that is your mindset about that, either that individual or that organization. It is based on the available information to you. You didn't assume it. You didn't imagine it. You didn't create it from nowhere. It is based on the available information to you. So when we speak to reputation, we have to be very careful to understand that sometimes what you tell yourself as what you are, what you stand for, what you do, is not necessarily what people think of you or what they know about you. And may I also announce to you that the reputation that you have is not of what you think or know of yourself, it's of what your target audience think and know of you. What it therefore means is that there can be a disconnect. So brand A can say, I'm all nice, I'm all good. My customer interaction, my product service delivery, my all of that, the end-to-end processes, nothing wrong, it's all good, it's all nice. But the end user can think the exact opposite, like the exact opposite of what you think of yourself. So that is something you must know. And I am saying that your reputation is not what you think of, say, of yourself. Your reputation is what your target audience think or say about you. I don't know if anyone understands that perspective. That is a disconnect. In some cases, there is let me take it again to say, in some cases, that is the reality in the sense that what A think of itself is not what the users and the target audience of A thinks of it. If it is that case, there is a disconnect. It means there needs to be a storytelling to shape the reputation and bring back what the desired outcome should be. In the case where there's a correspondence between what I think, what A thinks of itself, and what the users of A, either as product or services, think of it, is fine and is the same. In that case, it means you have told your story nicely, and therefore there is a correlation, there's a correspondence. You are on the same page. So if A says, I have integrity, the target audience of A, they confirm that they have integrity. If A says, I'm a pioneering person, I lead in innovation, and the target audience say, yes, they confirm that it is so, on and on like that, different dimension of yardsticks and metrics to measure that. But where the problem lies and where we should have the discourse today should be at that point where there is a disconnect, so that if you're in the space of public relations, of marketing, of branding, of activation, how do you now shape the narrative to your target audience for them to now align with you, that if you say this is what you stand for, that is what your end users actually think of you as what you stand for. So I like to get feedback on that, on what I just shared before I continue into, if we establish that we're using an analogy now to say there is a disconnect, We now want to move into how do we now craft our storytelling to make the reputation of that brand A, that is thinks of itself that is good, whereas the users, the target audience, say it is not. Before we go into that, let's get comments from people and reactions, please. Okay, I get a question. How can we use, okay, please, can you speak more to how brands can leverage the power of storytelling? Yeah, so that's where we're going to now to say we've established there is an issue. This is what you think of yourself, and that's not what people think about you. That is the reputation that they have of you. We'll now go into how can we leverage the power of storytelling to bring about our reputation being intact. Can I proceed, please?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Now, here's how I want to proceed with the first point I like to share. A few points to share. The first thing is you need to define yourself. You need to define yourself. Okay, I can see the question. You need to define yourself. And in defining yourself, you can be a whole lot of things that you are saying. You are a maker of this. You are the service provider of this. All of that. You can be a whole lot. Now, whatever it is you say you can be, let me tell you that the easiest way to tell that story is, number one, have a particular messaging that you say and you pass at every point in time. There is a place of consistency. So you start from crafting your message. So some people say, this is my vision, this is my mission, this is my this, and all of that. It begins from those little things. It begins from those little things. Now, when you have that narrative put together as what you want to be, in a small organization, it can be just you, that is the MD, the CEO, the everything, when particularly you are a startup. When you do that, the way to start shaping your narrative is your consistency matters. You have the opportunity to tell your story on platform A. Let it be that what you said on platform A is what you say on platform B, on C, on and on like that. When people notice a pattern of consistency, you are framing your narrative, and what you say you are is what they will take you to be. So the first thing I've said is craft your message, which is your identity. So even things like logo, colors, your payoff line, they are all part of your messaging. When you have now crafted that, I started from the very small part to say, you must now be consistent in telling your story. If there is inconsistency in your narrative, you said this in platform A. Let's look at channels now. There are multiple channels, digital channels, online, Instagram, WhatsApp group, DP, and all that. And what we do not know, let me give you an instance, what we do not know. If you're a small business, your DP is part of the message and your storytelling. How you put your name in your DP, that if someone wants to save your number without calling you to ask your name, is part of your storytelling. How the kind of images you put as your DP is part of your storytelling. The kind of things you put in your status on any of the channels is part of your storytelling. So take, for instance, you're a brand on mental well-being, or even things on well-being generally. But the things that you post about, the things that you share, are things that traumatizes people. You are not telling the right story. Because we're now in a world where the power of vision is stronger than the power of text. So you must strongly connect between what you say what you share across all platforms. Some people will say, oh, this is not my official comms channel. Some people will say, no, here is just play. I use it to play. No, when we say consistency, it cuts across every area and channels that you have the opportunity to share. That is how powerful storytelling can be. Do not discountenance one for the other. Let it be that if you have 10 channels with which they can reach you, let there be a consistency of pattern of what they see. The moment they see that, there will be a gradual shift of mindset of who you are, and who you are in those channels is what they will define you to be. Now, after speaking of consistency, consistency is dimension into, I mentioned you can be a small startup where you are the everything. You get to the office, you are the cleaner. You get to the office, you are the one that does your internet, you are everything, you are your IT guy, you are this. You must be consistent in your messaging. When you begin to grow, you are now 5, you are now 10, you are now a big company, hundreds. You must have people who speak on your behalf. Those people must undergo what you call training to understand this is the brand, this is what we stand for, this is what we do. And they must embrace the culture of the organization so that there is again, consistency has now moved away from when you were one man, one lady started the business to a point where you are now moving. Not everybody in your organization is spokesperson. You identify spokespeople and you train them on what to say so that it comes back to that point of consistency in your messaging. Now, the next point I want to talk about before I pick the questions on it in terms of branding and all of that is that there must be authenticity. So it is not a thing of I am consistent. Authenticity is the place of experience. So whatever you say you are delivering, either as a product, as a service, that is what you are delivering to your target audience. The truth is there must be a correlation between what you promise and what people experience, because the place of experience is real life. So if you promise this and they experience the opposite, trust me, you have broken the trust of your story. And it is easier to break the trust than to win back the trust. So following the pattern is, what is your message? You must be consistent in telling your story across platforms. When you have become of a certain size, you must now have people who speak for you. Not everybody should be speaking for the organization. Train them on how to speak, what to say, when to say this, and all of that. Then you also now added the place of authenticity, which is very close to experience. Give people the right experience and they will speak in your favor. You see all of that happening on social media, and it happens a lot presently. So I think there was an instance of recently one producer, female producer, one of her person on set that she uses a lot, had issues, and eventually the person passed. And of course, the sibling of the person that passed came online to say, you were not there. You were not there when we needed you. And so that was a bit of a reputation issue. But I also saw that there were people who on their own came out to say, she is not this kind of person. This is who she is. That is people speaking from their experience. Again, be careful to understand that there is no perfection. As long as human beings are involved, it can never be 100%. So I'm also giving the benefit of doubt to say, in the human nature of brands and organizations and people, give room for some level and dimension of errors. So the reputation of a brand that is green does not necessarily mean that their processes, their people, and all of that do not sometimes have bad experience. But the goal is to minimize the experiences that are not so good, take them very quickly as feedback to improve on your processes and your people to continue to deliver authentic experience. So those are some of the things to share. Now, let me go to the chat section to respond to questions. Okay, how can one balance emotional appeal and preserving the African dignity, particularly for a non-profit brand? Emotional appeal and preserving the African dignity. So what I hear in my head is you need some kind of imageries to be able to get the sentiment and buy-in of people. But at the same time, you do not want to make the people look very vulnerable, like it's a pity party. That's what I hear in my head. Now, here's my response to it. There was a day I was having a chat with someone about 4 or 5 years ago, and we're writing a story of how we try to support women in a certain community by empowering them in the way that we can using our products. So we give them our product to start a business. And so the guy came to me and said that you are helping the poor. You're helping people that do not have a future. You're helping, he used all sorts of words. And I looked at him, I said, no, I'm not. I said they are not. That everything you have said and used to describe them is not who they are, because they didn't write letter to those conditions and circumstances to say, I want to be this. It happened to them. There are children born in such circumstances. There are people who grew up that is their reality. They never wrote a letter to say, I want to be born into this community. Sorry, power just went off, but the camera will adjust if you can still see me. Now, the understanding from us when we're doing our write-up, we began to be very careful with our choice of words. So rather than use those very negative words, we have to find very words that are dignifying to describe the state of the people that we went to support. And one of the words that we were able to come up with was, we asked ourselves, why are these people like this? In our analysis and profiling, we realized that it was because of the deprivation of certain services by the government to them. So it's okay, if someone is deprived of certain things, it means in our own understanding, the person is underserved. And so rather than use those very unpleasant words that people use to describe people, because don't forget that these people are human beings. It could have been you that is in that situation and they in your situation. The question is, would you love to be described that way? I'm sure it's a no. And so we found that the word underserved in our, I don't know, maybe you can critique it. We found that such words were more dignifying. So rather than us to go and headline, we have empowered even the word indigent. We should be careful how we use it, because it is not so dignifying. Not to talk of the outright use of such words as poor people, vulnerable people. So those are words that I am saying in my own understanding to say, let's play down on them. The word that we found that was perhaps more inclusive in mindset without making them feel undignified was to say underserved communities, underserved people. Because truly, if they were not deprived of certain amenities, certain infrastructure, their conditions will not be like that. And so we used the word underserved. That was what we came up with. So in balancing emotions and preserving dignity, your job as a storyteller is to find the right choice of words and the right context. So you might want to show some images that are not so pleasant, but guess what? There is a place of you not outrightly shining the spotlight on their faces in their vulnerable state of not well covered and all of that. It is all about in you, how you take the images, either with your phone or with your professional cameras and all of that. You can still attract the support you need, either funding or anything, without necessarily making people feel undignified in the way they look and in the way you write about them. So I am challenging you to say, please, in shaping the narrative from a public relation perspective and branding, you do not necessarily attract the best of goodwill when you speak down on people. You only join in the conversation of worsening their condition by the way you have described them, whereas you have good intentions on one hand, but on the other hand, you are damaging their dignity. So our job as storytellers in branding, in public relations, and in building a nice reputation for Africa, for our communities, is to begin to tone down the harshness of the kind of words we use. Because put yourself in their situation. Would you like to be described in that way? I'm sure it's a no. That's the response I have on how do you balance emotional appeal and preserving the African dignity, particularly for a non-profit brand. So let me check again if there are more questions. Okay. A hand is up. Augusta Okafo, can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Okay, so thank you for the opportunity. So I didn't know how to type because it's kind of long. I decided to ask. So now here is my question. You mentioned something in the healthcare sector where people, like you say, for instance, someone is in healthcare, you have to post you have to keep posting, being consistent in what you're posting on social media. Now, considering the fact that healthcare is actually a kind of boring environment or industry, and you have to post. Now, I feel that the good part of it is that, like, you keep posting on things relating to healthcare, things relating to you building your startup on your social media. The good part of it is that it attracts the right people, that's serious-minded people, to your platform. However, the engagement is kind of low because people are directly or indirectly looking for something that makes them happy, something that takes away their minds from the vicissitude of lives and stuff like that, which is why you see entertainment industry thriving, because people want to be happy. Now, my question is this: how do you balance this? Because you don't want to show yourself out there as being unprofessional. At the same time, there are some certain things you can't post. Where do you strike a balance with the two situations, professionalism and being semi-professional, kind of like being caught in the middle? Thank you.
Okay, can you please stay on the call? Like, don't mute yourself. I'm going to ask you a question, and my mind is, if I'm correct, you will answer the question yourself. Dr. Proko, is he unprofessional? If you know Dr. Proko online.
No, he's not.
Is he unprofessional? He's not,
No,
right?
he's not.
But is he passing the right message? Like, I'm not a doctor, but I'm not into that feed, so I can't tell if he, but to you that is in that feed, I'm asking, is he passing the right message from what you know in your practice?
Yes, he is.
Okay, so I am not saying that everybody should become Dr. Aproko, but it's just that he's a success story of how you can.
Okay, so I'm coming from the situation where this person is a startup builder, not a content creator. I don't know if you get me, because it's just a very timeline and you deviate from what you originally have. I don't know if you get, this person is building a business, so you're dealing with the intricates of the challenges that come with building a startup. You understand? You are lost in work. However, you don't want to be offline. You want to create that presence. So how do you balance it? Aproko is the doctor. He's creating awareness, but he's actually a content creator when you put it in that.
So my gut feeling is that you know him as a content creator. I don't know him more than what I just see out there, but I am thinking that it is not impossible that either directly or indirectly he has a practice. I may not be correct. But let's go back to the startup person. The startup person, remember on the general side where we said start with what you have and from where you are. You must understand your environment, your area, your operating environment. I know environment can be contextualized. It can be a physical environment. It can be a bigger environment, which is virtual, and that's online. So the question is, if we look at a typical local environment, what do you think, because you are the one that is there, what do you think is a need that you can provide a solution to attract people to yourself? I grew up from a typical African community way back when I was growing up, before I came to Lagos. I know people will call nurse. I would call them nurse because we know that that's what they do. So I'm asking myself, how did we get to now start calling them nurse? And these people, nurses are very powerful, even chemists in such communities, because they end up becoming the doctors that everyone has access to. So I'm saying that if you break it down, let's not overthink it. In your startup that you're doing now, your location, your physical location, there must be a way that you can bring yourself up to relevance in that community. It can be you engaging with your place of worship, which can be any of the religions that you practice. So let's not discountenance the power of our associations. It can be from your immediate family. It can be from your old school association. You can break it down on and on like that. And before you know it, from where you are with what you have, you are starting. Give yourself time, like be patient with yourself and give it time. Again, understand that you experiment, you fail. So some things you tried might not work. Some things you didn't plan might come up, but just keep adapting to stay relevant in that space. That's what I think. And I do not know if this answered your questions or not. They say we have 8 minutes left. Let me just go through to see if there's any other person, any other question. So this one says, what is the key role storytelling? What is the key role of storytelling in brand building process? So I don't know if all of the things I've shared, number one, to say, if I recap, what is your message? From there, you move to be consistent in telling the story. And that consistency can be either you. So Augusta just hinted, it's possible she's a one-person startup where she is. So Augusta is the storyteller for her startup. When she begins to grow up to a certain size and number, not everybody in the organization will be a spokesperson. She will identify people that will be her spokesperson. We'll say whether it's one person that is a spokesperson or multiple people, there should be consistency. But there is a place that everybody in Augusta's organization play in. That is authenticity and giving people the right experience. So your storytelling is not necessarily that thing which is said all the time. It can be the experience you give people. When people encounter you in different ways, either for you to provide the service that you provide to them, or it's even on a chat platform, virtual or in person, what is that thing, the experience of you? All those things are part of building your brand using the power of storytelling. So, and remember, we said, and we cautiously said, do not underestimate the power of all the channels that you use in driving your visibility. Whether it's as simple as your status on WhatsApp, the pictures you put there, the way, there are some people that save their names as very funny. There's a group I belong to, you don't have all the numbers of everybody there. I was showing my colleague at work, what I saw as the name of the person is RIP. And it has been there for a very long time, like RIP and another thing. The person might perhaps, let's be human to say, it might be mourning someone. But if that person has a business and want to reach out to the person, if I go there and I see that, what will be my first thought? My first thought will not be of whatever service the person is providing. So such things, they all form part of your storytelling in the world that we now live in. That's something I wanted to drop for you guys. I don't know if that makes any sense. Okay. Do you want me to speak on any other thing as we wrap up? How many more minutes do we have? You said 8 minutes left.
Good afternoon, sir. Yes, please.
Okay.
I want to ask, when does a disconnect between what a brand represents as their own identity and what the target audience takes from that? How do we resolve that conflict?
So resolving the conflict, one of the easiest ways to do that is giving people the right experience. But again, is that experience is dimensioned. So experience is not necessarily in person. Experiences most times now are virtual. So if we look at our world now of e-commerce, practical example, there's a whole lot happening in e-commerce, and there's a value chain to it. From the time I come to you to place an order, what is your timeline of response? Yes, we are human, and I don't expect it to be awake 24 hours. But there are certain expectations of, based on the time of the day or the time of the evening, what is your response time? Is there integrity into me trusting I pay you? It could be a small amount, it could be average amount, it could be a huge sum of amount. And again, you move from there to the dispatch. All of that happens until it gets to you. What will happen in terms of what do I think of that vendor will be a function of how seamless these processes went through. So if there's a disconnect in any way, there are multiple ways to approach it. The vendor can, in a way, if the opportunity allows, reach out to say, oh, that's not who we are, and try to provide a better experience. That can be the solution. But in most cases for large corporates, it might not be so. And also understand that for large corporates, anybody can bring down a big organization now just by posting one small thing. It can happen. So nobody is immune to the potency and the power of the digital age, because you don't need the large corporate also do not have the exclusive power to go and tame anyone, because the days of taming or gagging anyone is long gone and dead and will never happen again. So the easiest way to recreate an experience and bring back trust and that reputation is for you to consistently start doing the right thing. The right thing can be contextualized, but just summarize it to say, give people the right experience. Why is Leap Africa what it is today? Because there's a success story of, we say we are for young people, want to train the next generation of entrepreneurs. I'm aware that in Lagos, for instance, Lagos Food Bank, the founder of it is from Leap Africa. That's an experience. I'm also aware of a couple of other people across the continent that are success stories of what Leap Africa does. Why is that so? Because there is a translation of what they said they will do to reality, which is the experience. Does it mean that Leap Africa does not have challenges that they are continuously improving on? No, they will continue to improve on it, but the straight and the top line message is that we do this, and here is our success stories. So you might also begin to do like a show and tell, to say, yes, you might not have had the best experience with me, but I also have these as my processes that I can tell you of testimonies. And we now believe in a lot of what I see more than what I hear, because what I see is what I experience. That's what I have to say on how to bring back that trust into building our reputation using storytelling. So storytelling is not necessarily you speaking all the time. It is giving the right experience, and people can now even be the ones telling your story for you. I'm done. Thank you very much.
Gifts for good are traveling on Monday. I've already heard that. You've already ordered what? I already ordered. To pick up what? To pick up the fabrics from it's not just fabric alone now. We need to buy this in box for the food they give. Madam.
Your
So I'm saying that you don't need to learn in these books. I don't know the materials. I wish you
Thanks so much. You're finished.
Hi, Joy. Hi, Joy. We can hear you.
Hello? Hello? No, I'm saying that.
Joy, you're muted.
I'm saying that. I want to order a new gift for you so I can done it. Okay, you will not be noticed.
Hello? Hi, Joy.
The what is what?
Oh, sorry. I think you're still muted, Joy. Maybe you can just check.
Hi, Joy. We can't hear you.
Okay.
All right, please confirm that you can hear me now.
Yes,
Thank
please.
you.
I can hear you.
All right, welcome back, everyone. I'm sure that we thoroughly enjoyed the breakout workshop. From some of the ones I was able to join, it was so powerful. Thank you so much, our speakers. Thank you, Niyi, Iyanuoluwa. Thank you, Mr. Godfrey. Very insightful workshop sessions. Okay, so we're going to take contributions from the different workshops. I just need you to raise your hand if you would like to speak about the session that you joined. I'm going to call on the first hand that I see raised. I want you to just share with us one major thing that you learned from the session that you joined, what you'd be doing differently going forward, and what you'd be doing better going forward. So I see a hand. Okay, so I see Mchel Dudu. Mchel Dudu, please go ahead. Tell us the session that you joined, and you can go ahead. Thank you.
Hi, Joy. First of all, I want to say thank you because you're one of the first persons that pronounced my name correctly. A lot of people say Mkel or they pronounce it as Dudu, and it's not Dudu. It's a Delta name, please. So thank you very much for that. Yeah. So I joined the data-driven storytelling using research session with Iyanuoluwa, and my God, that was really insightful. As a comms person who is also into I'm into public relations and communications as well as digital PR. You do a lot of research on a daily basis when coming up with posts for certain clients, when writing articles or even press releases. And sometimes you see these data and it's just so a lot, it's overwhelming. And you start to think to yourself, how exactly do I want to pass across that message? You might be writing something for, let's say, maybe someone like someone in the medical field, maybe malaria or cardiac issues or heart issues. And then you see this data and then they're talking about 1 in 70 people, 1 in a million, and you're wondering, okay, how exactly do I want to tell? What exactly is the message you want to bring out from there? And that sessions, Iyanu, really brought that out because you try and look for the storytelling narrative. You try and look for, okay, why would this be important to people? What is the story behind it? It's not just you bringing out data and telling them, so you have so and so number of people, so you have this percentage of people, but you bringing it out home, bringing it to them, breaking it down, knowing what is the objective, what is your insights, then you craft that narrative. So that way, when people are seeing the statistics, they can easily bring it to and relate it to themselves, and then like, oh, so that means that you don't even know, maybe your neighbor even had this heart issue, or I remember that time somebody died from malaria. That is what you are talking about. That way they easily understood it. So yeah, that I'd say that was like the main thing I picked out from the session, Tiana. So once again, thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much, Mchel, for sharing with us. I'm glad that you learned from that session. Very quickly, I'll just share with us that would be dropping a survey link in the chats. It's a feedback form, just us asking some really short questions to see what you learned from these sessions and, how we can be of further help and assistance really, and areas, just the different areas of support that people need. We'll be dropping it in the chat room. Please make sure that you click on the link and fill the form. We'll take the second person. I know I saw, yes, Yvonne Jack, over to you. Please tell us which session you joined and what you learned.
Okay, hi everyone. Thank you very much, Leap Africa, for this great opportunity. And I was on the video storytelling session. So I want to say thank you to Niyi as well. And this has really brought me clarity because I create content and I make videos for I share stories about people living with spinal cord injury in Africa, and I have always wanted to understand how to bring it through to people to understand that people living with spinal cord injury could still live a very good life, independent life, and do well after an injury. Because in Africa, after an injury, people go through terrible things, and I've been trying to look for a way to come through in a positive way, and it has shown me, Niyi brought out some things that really gave me insight. Like, you have to know your why, you have to do some writing and post-production, a lot of things that I did not do. And mostly when I film a video, when it's time to edit or when it's time to make the video look very good, I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to do here? So right now I know I have to write, plan, and know what to do before I create content or make this videos. Thank you very much, Niyi.
Thank you so much, Yvonne, for sharing with us. Well done. Well done on the work that you do also. Thank you. I think that the final person I'm going to call on, and I hope that you were in Mr. Godfrey's workshop, is Hannatu Pamela Ishaya. Hi, Hannah. Okay, all right, you've unmuted.
Yes, thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you, everybody. So I joined the data-driven for research. Thank you to our panelists. She actually pulled a lot and informed us with a lot of information. First, in my head, I usually think when they talk about data, I only see data. I think data is all about qualitative, but she called our attention that data is not all about figure. When you talk about data, you have to think of both the qualitative and the quantitative data. Thank you for that information. Again, the person that spoke about the first lady that spoke about, she talked about insight. She gave us different scenarios. So data is not, okay, I went to a community, I did my situation analysis, and I came out with this lump sum figure, let's say 1,000. So the 1,000, the insight is there's a different narrative to that 1,000. You have to give an insight. You have to contextualize it. Thank you so much also for the point. And my last takeaway again is the issue of call to action. By the time you come up with your data, you come up with your need assessment, one key important thing that we all need to do, or she spoke to us, is your call for action. That way you'll be visible and you also insights to your donors. Thank you so, so much. I'm grateful for the opportunity.
All right, thank you so much, Hannatu, for sharing with us. We'll take one final person from the PR and branding workshop. Confidence, were you in that workshop?
No, I wasn't actually.
All right, so we'll move on to the next person. I think I saw Rosemary. Yes, Rosemary Manuel. Were you in the PR and branding session? Hi, Rosemary. If we can't hear from Rosemary, Joseph Udo, were you in the PR and branding session?
Hi, sorry, I wasn't in that cluster. Sorry.
All right, that's fine. So I need someone that was in the PR and branding session to please share with us a couple of things that they learned. Any takers? Okay, I see Augusta. Augusta Okafor, over to you.
Okay, thank you for this opportunity. So some of the things we learned from him is about consistency in sharing your stories across broad, and also that it also says something about authenticity. Authenticity comes from a place of experience. It's something that it just has to be unique to you. So I learned that if you're going to tell your story, make sure that what you're telling Mr. A is not different from what you're telling Mr. D, because in the long run, these people are going to judge you or perceive your business or your brand based on the stories you have given to them. And that is where authenticity comes in. Thank you. Because these people are going to speak for you when you are not there.
Thank you so much. Someone in the comments said, I joined Mr. Godfrey's session. It was, apologies, it was amazing. I understood how to effectively balance emotional appeal and preserving Africa's dignity through the use of positive keywords. Yes, and I think I heard a part where he was talking about how to refer to people from communities. He actually used the word underserved communities. You realize that these people do not have access to amenities and facilities that other members of their society or the nation have access to. So they are underserved. We tend to use words like poor, underprivileged. Those words are not quite positive. But when you say underserved, we understand that the resources that are available to them do not match what is available to other parts of the nation. And so they are underserved. Thank you so much, everyone. I would take, let me see, one question. If you have a question, a quick question that you'd like to ask, you can quickly raise your hand. The survey link is already in the chat room, so please click on it and fill the survey. Okay, Joseph, over to you, Joseph. Please ask your question. Hi, Joseph. Okay. I don't see him anymore. All right, we'll take another person with a question. Network probably threw him out. Oh, Joseph, I can see that you're unmuted, but we can't hear you. Someone has a question in the chat. Can we get the slides from our facilitators? Okay, I can see Iyanuoluwa nodding in affirmation that you can't get her slides. Confidence, please ask your question. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Iyanuoluwa, for that session. It was really insightful and impactful. So I worked at a nonprofit as a communications manager, and in my line of work, we basically want to measure impact, and those we really need data to kind of measure our impact when we put it side by side with what is already the norms, what's already there, and how far have we gone, want to measure our impact. Are we kind of like reducing the number? For example, we want more women in leadership. Are we actually increasing this number of women in boards and across all political, social, economic life? So my question basically is, how do we get this data? Because it's kind of a struggle. Because when you want to share your story, you share a database story so people know that these things are happening. It's kind of a struggle getting readily available data. So what are some of the sites where you can get these data? And then can you recommend a social listening tool or maybe something in this regards? Because you mentioned something about how is your storytelling being received. So it also boils down to measuring impact. So after you've done everything you need to do as a comms person, what narrative are you changing? Who's talking about you, your organization, about what you're doing? So one, the data, where can we get them from? Then two, how can we measure our impact by using social listening tools?
Thank you, Confidence. Very quickly, I'll just answer the questions from two perspectives. Unfortunately, we have like a problem in Nigeria, which is the fact that data is very difficult to access. So if you're talking within the context of Nigeria, I can understand how difficult it is to access some of those information. So, I think that what has worked in the past is dialogue and engagement. I think this is where your stakeholder engagement actually comes in, because there are some data that you probably would not be able to have access to publicly. Also because Nigeria is not the kind of country that, sorry to say, sort of coordinates its data management, approach like that. So I think that when it comes to specifically gender equality, I think that one of the things that really work with stakeholder engagement and being able to ask directly from some of the people that work directly in that ecosystem, to be able to say, okay, this is data that we need, and where can we get it from? Or write FOI, Freedom of Information Act is there. You can also leverage that. You can write some of these ministries, some of these agencies, and try to get, their perspective. And also another thing that works is that looking at organizations that also work within that ecosystem, sometimes they also have some of those data, and then you can sort of piggyback and say that, okay, we are working on this, and this is the kind of data that we really, really need to, we need to access, which is the qualitative aspect. The quantitative aspect, sorry. But the qualitative aspect is also that, you might have to like sort of put out some survey questionnaires and try to understand the context of some of these things, because I'm not sure there's a database that sort of, puts together all that information or data in one place. You have to do like extra work and extra questions and extra collaborations to be able to get some of them. And of course, in terms of social listening tools, I know off the top of my head, HubSpot is very good. Sprout is very good, but those are quite like expensive for upcoming organizations. So I would recommend something like Buffer or Hootsuite. They are quite cheap, and then you can start from there, and they give you like the basic level of sentiment analysis of how your content is doing, how your stories are being received, and things like that, so that you can also use that to inform future storytelling initiatives. I think, yeah, because of time, I don't know if that answers your question or if that helps, but yeah.
Thank you so much, Iyanuoluwa. I see that Mr. Godfrey's hand is up. I'm sure he wants to contribute to that.
Yeah, just to add to what Iyanuoluwa said, I would suggest that partner with female-led organizations, female-focused organizations. They exist. I know especially WIMBIS, by scale and impact, they are very inclusive, and they're also they are layered from bottom to top and vice versa. So there are people that, because of their spread, they've got young people who are members, middle level career women, and very senior people. So in their system, if you reach out to them, and what I also know about them is they are very inclusive. So it's not about where you are, who you are. They just want to support. And if you do reach out to them, I can confirm that on their system, they might have some data that they can use to support.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Godfrey and Iyanuoluwa, for answering that question. I see that Joseph's hand is still up. I know that he had tried to unmute and ask his question earlier, so I'll just give him one more chance, and that would be the last question that we will take for today. Over to you, Joseph.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but your volume is pretty low. Okay, you know what, Joseph? Why don't you type your question in the chat? We'll take it. Let's have Bukola ask her question real quick.
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity. And the session has been very, very insightful. My question is to Niyi. I want to ask, how do you overcome all this challenge of, for instance, I'm working with teachers. I have an initiative for teachers and all, and you want to create a story around teachers, and you need to go to government schools, to capture teachers and all that. How do you overcome that challenge of, you have to go to the ministry, you have to take permission before you can do this or that? Because really it can be so tiring.
Okay, sorry. So just to confirm, right? So I think maybe just to reformat your question is more or less just getting permission to film in certain places, right?
Yes.
Okay, so typically, right? I mean, if it's with a brand, which is a lot much easier, the brand themselves will help and they will aid to help you get access to where you need to film. You get, so for instance, I work a lot with UNDP, and to go to Borno State now and to fly a drone, which is what the insurgents actually use as well, right? And which is very dangerous. So you have to get some level of approval, right? And being able to get that approval, I can't go by myself and say, I want to write the chief of army staff to go and get the approval, right? But UNDP as an organization, they actually make that available for you once you have all the licenses and accreditations possible, and the military approves it, right? So for when you're now looking at more or less from a freelancer standpoint, right? And let's say if you have no connections whatsoever. So how I started, right, was I started documenting these little places, and how I did it was I actually reached out to people. You get, so maybe you can find one person that actually has access to this place. So for instance, it can be a friend, or it can be a mutual that can have access or know somebody that you can talk to, so you can get some form of access. You get, so that might be the best approach to take. Or you can just approach them directly, but you should be able to explain what exactly you need to do. And the thing is, I've noticed that a lot of Nigerians are actually open to, to getting pictures taken and, video work and stuff like that, right? As long as they're able to explain to them the use of it. You get, a lot of people just think that, I'm going to snap your picture and I'm going to sell it. No. But if I actually explain to you that, I'm just doing a personal project, or I'm doing a project for so and so, I'll just need your permission in so and so way. That's one of the best approaches you can take. But if you are working with an organization, right, so the organization should actually aid in that process, so that it should be a lot easier for you. Yes. Good. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you so much, Niyi, for that response. Thank you to all the people who asked questions. We'd have to wrap this up now because of our time. I'd like to thank our speakers. Thank you so much, Mr. Godfrey, Iyanuoluwa, and Niyi, for taking the time, to do these sessions with us. They were very insightful, very instructive, a lot of knowledge that you have shared with us to glean from. Thank you. And I'm sure that everyone's work will be better for it. And thank you to everyone who attended this session. You can catch a replay of it on our YouTube channel. You can also just check out the work that Leap Africa does by visiting our website at www.leapafrica.org. You can also follow us on social media, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter at Leap Africa, so that you can see some of the work that we're doing and areas where you'd like to partner with us, collaborate with us, just to make our nation and our continent a better place. Thank you so much, everyone. This has been an amazing session, and we look forward to seeing the stories that you will tell from this session. Thank you so much. See you next year. Bye.
Bye, everyone.